Hi everyone, welcome to video 1 of the mini-series Self-Love Letters for Healing. If this is the first video that you're watching, pause, go to the introduction video where I talk more about the series, how to prepare, what to expect, and then come back to this video. If you watched the introduction video, welcome back. This is video 1. We're going to be talking about mental wellness today, and I'll be guiding you in writing your own letter to yourself based on mental wellness. But before we do that, I have to give a special shout out once again to Haiti Cultural Exchange, also known as HCX. HCX is the reason why I'm able to even do this mini-series and share with you. So definitely check them out. They have other artists in the Rasin Lakay program, as I've mentioned, and they have other amazing programs and resources. So definitely check them out. So just a reminder, I'm Glenda Lezeau. I am an author and mental wellness advocate, and I started Rising from Bipolar, where I share inspiring messages based on my story living with bipolar disorder. So this video is very special to me because mental wellness is, in a sense, my ministry. And so I'm really excited to be able to share my story and also share some letters from my book and guide you into writing a letter to yourself based on mental wellness. So I'm going to start out with reading a letter from my book, Letters to My Bipolar Self. If you have my book, you can turn to page 33. This is letter number 9, titled Feeling Depressed. My love, are you feeling depressed? If so, know that during this moment, a lot of the thoughts that are running through your mind are lies. You are thinking of thoughts and accusations that are false. Do your best to dismiss those thoughts, especially the ones that don't normally sound like you or ones that contradict what you truly believe. But at the same time, take some mental notes on the topics that are on your mind, because that could give you an idea of what changes you might need to make. Just don't believe the irrational thinking around those topics. I know it's traumatizing to experience this moment, but keep reassuring yourself that this too shall pass and that you are strong enough to conquer it. On the bright side, there is always something that you can learn from depressive moments. While you are feeling depressed, validate your feelings, empathize with yourself, be patient with yourself, and be forgiving to yourself. I love you even when you are in this state. XOXO, your cheerleader. Okay, so I know you already heard one letter from the introduction video, and coincidentally, they're both about depression. I do have other symptoms, but I wanted to choose these letters specifically. And so I want you to think back on the letter that I read to you. If you notice, I'm using terms of endearment. If you notice, the tone is loving and encouraging and empowering despite the challenges that I was facing during that time. Another thing that might be a little bit confusing at first is notice that it seems like it's in first person, but technically it's not. So let me go back and show you what I mean. So for example, I'll put, I know it's traumatizing to experience this moment, right? So there's the eyes in there, but technically I wrote these letters as if it's my spirit came out of my body and is speaking directly to me. So you can also think of it as a loved one writing a letter to you based on what's going on in your life or your inner being, but it's important to word it in that way. So it's as if you're talking to yourself. So you're saying, so in the beginning, I started out saying, are you feeling depressed? If so, know that during this moment, etc., etc. So it's like talking to yourself in the mirror. And the reason why that's important is sometimes when you take yourself out of the situation a little bit, it makes it easier to think differently, right? Sometimes when we're experiencing what we're experiencing, it's harder for us to find ways to help ourselves or encourage ourselves. But if someone else was going through the same thing, it might be easier to give them advice and encourage them because your emotions are not as attached to it. So that's one thing that's important. So tone is very, very important. This is a loving letter. This is not a letter where you're judging yourself or butchering yourself. Terms of endearment. So I started out saying my love. So again, that might be a little weird at first, but terms of endearment are so important. And not just when you're writing this letter to yourself, but just in general. I've gotten to the stage where that's what's going on in my mind. The voice in my head talks to me that way. Now, in my book, I over-exaggerated a little bit, but sometimes I do say, sweetheart, it's okay. Sweetheart, you're fine. My love, keep going. You got this. And it's so comforting. Love in general feels good, or it's supposed to feel good when it comes from someone else, but when it's self-love, it's something that's just inexplainable. I can't even put words to it, and I've noticed the healing effects with that. So terms of endearment are very important. And so what are some terms of endearment? You can say my love, you can say sweetheart, you can say my partner, you can say my man. I mean, there's no right or wrong. Whatever resonates with you, you choose, and you can just use that in the letter and incorporate that. So we talked about tone, terms of endearment. It's not in first person, so it's like you're talking in the mirror as if you're a separate person. And also notice towards the middle and towards the end, when I start kind of giving advice and encouragement, like, hey, you can learn from this depression. Here's how you can learn from it. And so, like I mentioned, I'm going to give you different guides based on whether you have a mental health condition or symptoms or not. So I'm going to start with that. So if you have a mental health condition, if you have symptoms, mental health symptoms, I want you to do everything that I said, the tone, terms of endearment, being positive, all of that. That goes for both letters. But more specifically, what I want you to do is I want you to start in the letter. You start with terms of endearment, and then I want you to either choose a specific situation that happened where your symptoms were triggered, or if you want to just talk general, maybe you're noticing a trend where a depressive state keeps happening or anxiety keeps coming up. Either way is fine. Choose that and describe that in your letter in the beginning. It's almost like a way to kind of just vent and let it out. Once you reach the middle of the letter, then I want you to flip it. I want you to be able to find encouraging words, advice, loving words. Even if you don't know the solution, just still loving words, encouraging words. And one step further, if you're able to do this, because this part is a little bit challenging, and this is what I was talking about earlier about the positive aspect. If you can go deeper and think of, even if it's just one positive aspect that you're able to get from the symptoms that you experience or the condition that you experience, include it in there. I know that concept sounds very backwards. I know it can be challenging, but trust me on this, it can be very, very healing, because your symptoms might be causing you a lot of pain, but your perception of the experience can make a difference for future symptoms and can just help you mentally in general, or even help you rewire certain things in your brain. And so in the middle there, if you can add the positive along with the encouraging words, then do that. But if you can't think of anything, it's perfectly fine, because I know it's challenging to get your brain to think that way. So towards the middle, you give an encouraging words, and at the very, very end, close it off with positivity, with love. Continue on with the advice, and close it off as if, not necessarily as if you're healed per se, but from a perspective of, wow, I'm going through this, but here's something I could look forward to. Here's how I can hold on to hope. And then you sign it off. You can definitely say how I said in this letter, I put I love you. Definitely do that, because again, this is technically a love letter to yourself. So you can sign off I love you, and then have fun with it. This one was kind of boring. I put the signature I ended with just your cheerleader, but some of my other signatures is your shining light, your healer. So you can have fun, your peaceful friend. So you can have fun with how you sign it off in, but make it related to the letter. So when I put your cheerleader, I'm cheering myself on throughout the letter. So I sign off with your cheerleader. Okay. So now if you are feeling mentally well and you don't have symptoms, or you don't have a condition, or you have a mental health condition, but you've been feeling good, I want you to, again, focus on everything I touched on earlier with tone is still very important. No, you're not writing it in first person. Also, it's still going to incorporate encouraging words and such like that. But I want you to emphasize gratitude. Gratitude, 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 gratitude. Sometimes we take for advantage when we're feeling well. But really, when we're feeling well, we need to acknowledge it, notice it, and give such gratitude to it so that we can continue to attract wellness. Now, of course, this is not perfect. It doesn't mean that if you start doing gratitude, you're never, ever, ever going to experience any mental health issues or symptoms, but it will be easier to maintain the wellness, and it will be easier for you to recognize when you are not feeling well. You'll be able to bounce back at a different rate. So I want you to just focus on gratitude. You can either be specific for a specific day or a specific moment, or maybe for the last 2 months you've been feeling well mentally, so you could talk about that generally speaking, or you could talk about a specific situation that came up where 2 years ago you would have been triggered, but you realize, wow, this similar situation happened and I'm actually feeling great. So you could talk about that. And once you explain whatever it is that you choose, pour out the gratitude and be specific. Don't just say, I am grateful for being well. Be specific. I am grateful that I can see growth. I am grateful that despite what's going on, I'm able to be mental well. I am blessed. You can use whatever terms you want to use, but definitely be grateful for it. And then towards the end, I want you to think about, what do you think could be contributing to you being mentally well? So maybe, for example, you notice you've been meditating more often, and since then you're more mentally well. Maybe you talk more to loved ones and connecting with loved ones more. You think that's contributing. So of course, there's not going to be one thing that's contributing to you being mentally well, but you can write one thing, you can write multiple things. And the reason why that's important is, again, because sometimes we take for granted that we're feeling well. We're not able to recognize what's contributing to it. So for example, if, let's say, meditating every single day helps you be mentally well, but you're so used to meditating that you're just like, oh yeah, this is what I do. And then one day you just don't feel like meditating. You just, I'm just not going to meditate. Oh, I'm fine. I'm still feeling fine. And then 2 weeks later or a month later, you start realizing, dang, I'm not feeling well mentally. This is weird. I've been feeling well for so long. What's causing it? But because you're not even aware that the meditation is contributing to your mental wellness, you're not able to put two together and say, oh, I haven't been meditating. Let me get back to that. So that's just an example. So focus on what it is that you think is contributing to it and write that. And throughout the whole letter, you're still writing a loving tone. It could be a tone of excitement as well. I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy to see you happy. I'm so happy to see you so mentally well. Write terms like that, phrases like that. And then towards the end, you can also say, I love you if you want to. It's up to you. And then you can have fun with the signature as well. So what I want you to do, whichever template you want to use, I want you to reread the letter a few times, 1 or 2 times right after you write it. Read it, really immerse yourself in it. And then I want you to either keep it away somewhere, or if you want to keep it on your dresser, it's up to you. It doesn't matter. But I want you to keep it somewhere that you have access to. And the reason why I say that is, you never know months from now where that letter might pop into your mind. The same way that I talked about in the introduction video. So the letter needs to be accessible. If at any point, I don't care if it's 6 months later, 5 years later, I don't care. If it pops up like, wait, didn't I write a letter about this? I need you to be able to know where you can access it and reread it, because sometimes we need reminders. It's not just, okay, I wrote the letter once and I'll remember what I wrote. You'll be surprised. There's a lot going on in our brain. So keep it somewhere that's accessible, and whenever it pops up, read it again, because that's part of the healing process. Have fun writing these letters, even if you might be experiencing symptoms, but pour your heart out. And sometimes writing these letters, and I hope that this doesn't discourage you, depending on how deep you go, you might start getting emotional. You might even shed a tear or shed tears. Allow it to happen. I don't like crying. Just a parenthesis, I really don't, especially in public, but sometimes it is needed. And some of the letters I've written to myself have led me there. So if it happens, it's okay, because again, this is part of the healing. So once again, these letters are private between you and yourself, but of course, if you want to share it, you are welcome to sharing it. Still email me if you have any questions, concerns, and also I'd love to hear your experience. How was this? Let me know if this is the first time you're writing a letter. If you've done this before, I'd love to hear from you. My email again is rasin@bipolar@gmail.com, and I'm looking forward to hearing from, it doesn't have to be all of you, but I'm looking forward to hearing to you if you want to email me. Next video will be about physical wellness, again, with or without physical symptoms. And that video will probably drop in about a week. So that gives you about a week to do this letter. If for some reason you're not able to do a letter within a week, I want you to still do this letter first before seeing the physical wellness video. Okay? Because again, it's important with the sequence. But either way, I will see you in the next video. Once again, I'm Glenda Lezeau from Rising from Bipolar. This is my book, just in case if you want to check it out at Barnes & Noble, Letter to My Bipolar Self. So it's only available on barnesandnobles.com, not in stores. Thank you so much again for joining me on this journey and on this mini-series. I'm super excited for your experience, sending you tons and tons of wellness your way, lots of abundance and healing. Bye now. Thanks for watching.